It's probably no surprise to anyone who is listening to this that I am a doggy person. I am unapologetically so. Sarah here, aka the Business Fixer. Now, Fitz is definitely one of the loves of my life. Before him, it was Sky, and I felt exactly the same about her. Dogs, they just give you that love. There's something special about them. You know, it's the way that they look at you, that steady, slightly expectant gaze that somehow manages to soften even the busiest day, or, you know, when they've done that naughty thing and they just look at you and all you want to do is just give them a absolutely massive hug. You know what I'm talking about. Then there is the following from room to room, upstairs, downstairs, and yes, even to the bathroom. Those doggy people out there will know exactly what I'm talking about, because Fitz will sit there watching me as if I'm about to make an important life decision, when in reality I'm just trying to do my business, right? So, and one of the things I value most about the business that I have built is that I have the freedom and flexibility. So I am home quite a bit. When I'm not, I can often take him with me. That flexibility wasn't accidental. My business is being designed in that way intentionally. And when I walk back through the door and he barks because he's clearly missed me, it reminds me exactly why I've structured my business in this way. I am growing my business around what matters to me, and that shapes how I make my decisions. And if you're probably honest with yourself as a business owner, you're probably trying to do the same. It might not be as a result of a dog, but it could be as a result of your family or for other reasons, because you didn't simply build your business to increase your turnover. You built it to create stability, control, choice, freedom. You've built it so that it supports your life rather than consume it. Although, come on, let's be real. How many of you, put your hand up in the comments, that, it does kind of consume you at times, right? But to get to that point where it doesn't consume you, the business has got to be strong enough to hold that. Growth doesn't just ultimately require that delivery. It requires the stronger foundations, right? And those strong foundations is what truly gives you the freedom in your business. And when you're at this particular stage where the business is stable, you have got consistent income coming in, you know, things are fairly good. But from the outside, everything looks solid and steady. That bank balance doesn't cause concern. But inside the business, something's different. In the earlier years, you were close to every detail, every financial detail. You knew what was coming in, what was going out, almost instinctively, because you would have to watch those numbers because every single penny literally counted. Remember those days? You could see where the margins were tight. You understood the cost base without needing to interrogate lots of reports. The business was smaller, simpler, and easier to hold in your head. But as the business grows, that proximity changes. You've got more team members, you've potentially got more services, more transactions are going through. So ultimately, there's more complexity. You're beginning to move, hopefully, out of pure delivery, and you're starting to shift into leadership. But you're still straddling both worlds. How many of you does that sound familiar to, right? Because you'll still review the numbers and you are still financially responsible, but the depth of the understanding of those numbers can potentially begin to drift as you start to scale. They feel like something you check rather than something that actively guides you. Now, growth requires depth, not just more revenue, right? When you first started, basic reporting was enough. You could see what, you could see everything in terms of, you just needed to have the kind of baseline figures. Whereas now you're in a position where it's no longer enough just to know where your overall turnover is and your overall profit is. Those are headline figures. Useful, but limited. Now you need to understand what is driving that profitability. You need clarity in terms of which of your services are generating the strongest margins. Where are the costs that are gradually increasing? And, whether growth is genuinely improving, whether growth is genuinely improving, or whether performance, it's just simply simply reflecting on the last quarter. And this is a real shift. And this is the stage which many business owners begin to outgrow their financial systems that once felt entirely inadequate. Now, I'm not saying you need to change your accounting software, because actually the good ones like Xero, they will still function perfectly well. And the bookkeeping may well be accurate and up to date, and the accounts prepared correctly and on time. However, the real question is around the level of insight that you then get as a business owner required for you to lead effectively. That's what's increased. And that shift rarely announces itself. It simply becomes harder to answer those more detailed financial questions as quickly and as confidently. And when you find yourself needing to dig deeper or rely on instinct more than you would like, then this is often a sign that the business has evolved, because the depth of its current reporting structure has changed. For abroad, right? Now, like I said, this is not about swapping accounting software for the sake of it. Like I said, tools like Xero will absolutely grow with you. The issue is rarely the core platform. The issue is what you're using it for, right? So if your financial setup is primarily designed to just record your transactions and meet compliance requirements in your year-end accounts, then it's doing the job it's built for. But at this stage, it's only part of what you need. Your financial system should be supporting leadership decisions. Compliance reporting and leadership reporting, however, are not the same thing. Leadership reporting requires structure, consistency, and forward visibility. And at this stage, your financial system should enable you to see things clearly, like your profit by service or department, not just the overall profit, the real cost of running each part of the business, trends across multiple months, not just what's happened last month, what the next year could look like based on your current performance, and the impact of planned changes before you even commit to them, right? So this is usually the point where additional tools and processes become valuable, not as shiny add-ons, but as practical support. So to give you an example, Dext. Dext can improve the quality and speed of your expense capture, which means your numbers are cleaner and more up to date. I use Dext and I encourage my clients to use it. Fathom, not the AI recording in Zoom Fathom. There is a software relating to accounts, which can turn Xero data into clearer management reporting and forecasting. Makes it easier for you to understand your performance without wading through spreadsheets. And don't be one of those people that has a spreadsheet for a spreadsheet. Dataline. Now that can support structured reporting and visibility, giving you a clearer picture without needing to manually build everything yourself. And you know what? Sometimes the most important addition is not software at all. It's actually having a person, a finance manager, or a fractional finance director can translate the numbers into insight and context. And the purpose of these tools are not simply to produce more reports, but to help you identify patterns and ensure the financial insight is informing your strategic decision making, right? So how many of you who are watching this, I would love to hear in terms of what out of these things are you using? What other additional support for your financial systems are you using other than your actual traditional accounting software? Okay, so why does this sort of thing evolve so quietly? Now, outgrowing financial systems rarely happens in a dramatic way. Sometimes these things in business is just this quiet thing that slowly kind of starts to kind of develop. And it tends to happen, as I say, gradually as a business grows and your leadership focus shifts, or your focus into leadership more specifically. As your attention moves towards team development, service quality, and strategic direction, your financial reporting continues to be in the background. It does what it's always done. And as long as your profitability remains strong, you don't have an immediate trigger to question whether the depth of reporting is sufficient. If you think of that thing, when something's not broken, don't fix it. But this is where it actually isn't necessarily broken, but the cracks are starting to form. Now, profitability can mask the need for deeper insight, because a business can perform well and still lack the level of financial understanding required to support those the decision making. In some cases, continued reliance, for example, on things like spreadsheets to bridge reporting, that compounds the issue. And it also can introduce risk and inefficiency, right? Now, the issue is that the business has evolved, but the financial infrastructure has not yet evolved alongside it. So when you know the headlines, but not the detail, like you know your turnover, you know your overall profit, you know whether the month was decent, but do you know these aren't the answers to these questions, like where is profit strongest right now? Which service line is performing best in real terms? Which part of the business is quietly costing more than it should? What is the next year going to look like if nothing changes? What impact would be, would there be if, for example, a key overhead rose by 15%? Would you know the answers instantly? Would they be clear, or would you need to go away, pull reports and speak to somebody and to then piece it all together? This is the difference between having numbers and having clarity. Reports can exist and still be useful in the moments that matter. But if your reporting is mostly historic, it's only going to confirm what's happened. That is valuable, but it doesn't always support what you need next, which is that decision confidence. Now, the hidden cost is slower because you're going to be less certain on your decisions, because if you do not have that deeper understanding of the numbers, decisions tend to take longer, not because you're indecisive, but because you're carrying more financial context in your head. You're trying to make a call while mentally filling in the gaps. You're relying on judgment in places where structure would support you. That can show up as pausing longer than necessary, delaying decisions that otherwise you'd move on more quickly, or feeling like you need extra reassurance before committing, even when the business is performing well. It also can show up, if you're staying at the same level and if you're staying at the same level of reporting for too long, because improving it feels like a project, you do not have space for another project. So you don't work on it. But that delay will have a cost, not as an obvious cost that shows up in the bank balance next week, but a strategic cost, a leadership cost. And when your financial systems do not provide enough depth, your decision making takes more effort than ultimately it needs to. So what do you do to strengthen as the business grows? If you want the numbers to support you properly at this stage, the goal is not to add endless reports, The goal is to strengthen the parts of your financial system that need the clarity. So this is kind of a few ideas of what I would review first in order, and where I think the real impact can come from. Now, start with structure, not tools. If the foundations are messy, any reporting tool will simply produce clearer versions of messy information. So number one, check whether Xero is structured for insight, not just compliance. This is usually about the chart of accounts and how costs are coded. If everything is lumped together, your reports will always be limited. Two, make sure you can see profit by service line without manual work, which you can do if you actually break down in terms of your sales, again, to do with the chart of accounts, right? Because if you need to manipulate spreadsheets to understand where profit is coming from, you're relying on effort rather than a system. And this is often the first sign you have that you've outgrown the current setup. Three, introduce a consistent reporting rhythm, not just sending reports, but reviewing them properly, monthly, structured and focused on decisions, not just information. Four, add forecasting that is genuinely used, not a once a year budget that gets ignored, a rolling forecast that is reviewed and updated so you have forward visibility. Five, improve the quality and speed of the data going in. This is where tools like Dex can genuinely be helpful. It will clean capture, consistent coding, less delay, right? So 6, introduce management reporting that is designed for leadership. Tools like Fathom or structured reporting support such as Dataline can help you see trends, margins and performance more clearly without building everything manually. 7, consider who owns financial insight in the business. At a certain point, it's no longer sensible for this to sit only with the owner, squeezed in between everything else. And you know who you are if you're doing this, right? A finance manager or a fractional finance director can take responsibility for interpretation, not just production. So you are supported with clear insight when you need to make decisions. This is not about making finance complicated. It's about making finance useful. When your financial systems is right for your stage, you do not feel like you're guessing. You feel like you can see, right? Now, the point of strengthening your financial systems is not to become obsessed with data, it's to lead well. As the business grows, your understanding should grow with it. You should feel clear on what is driving performance and what needs attention without needing to go digging every time when you're about to make a decision. You do not need every metric. You need the right information presented consistently, reviewed properly and translated into insight. That is what turns numbers into leadership support, right? So most business owners review their team as they grow. They review their structure as they grow. They review their delivery as they grow. Financial systems deserve the same attention. So if you know you need a deeper understanding of your numbers and you know you need the right systems in place to support growth, then the next step is not necessarily a new piece of software. The next step is clarity on what your business needs right now. And that is exactly what the business performance strategy session is for. It gives you that space to look at what you're currently using, what you can see, what you cannot see yet, and what needs strengthening so you can make decisions with confidence as the business continues to evolve. So if you want to book in a business performance strategy session, you'll see that the link is going across the screen, or you just need to simply comment the word systems or DM me and we can have a conversation. So hope you found that all very helpful, and I will see you all very